Welcome to the We Win Injury Law podcast, everybody. I'm Tyler Todd, your host, sitting here with my co-host, Jaren, the Snow Canyon man, Sandberg. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hey, if you guys have listened to the podcast before and heard any of our podcasts and radio shows, and we've talked about how we don't really like Ryan Reynolds. If Ryan Reynolds really knew what we were doing, he'd probably laugh at us, but that's okay.
I bet he's one of our 40 listeners.
You think? That would be amazing.
He's been tuning in. He's waiting to pounce. He's like, as soon as they slip up, I'm gonna go after them.
But speaking of Ryan Reynolds, one of his better movies is Spirited.
Yeah.
Where we get
great Christmas movie.
It's a great Christmas movie. So a little good afternoon to you all. Today we're going to talk about Utah stories and cases that you won't believe that actually have happened. And we're going to talk about some of those and give some insights and some thoughts of our own about these stories and cases. Maybe talk about some real issues that come up with these cases and you know what to believe, which is kind of like what's super interesting because we go to conferences all the time. And something that's super important to us is to go and we know some of the best, I would say some of the top trial lawyers in the country. Yeah. And we've gone enough of these conferences. Now we've become friends with them. And it's just interesting and some that we don't know. Yeah. But it's interesting to hear some of the numbers that come out of these conferences and some of these lawyers and they're like, all right, how did that happen? So, of course, we go and because we want to hear the story of what happened. And sometimes I feel like either one, it's not quite how it was represented. Yeah. When I start listening and I'm like, wait a second, that's not what I thought was actually happened.
Yeah.
Or I've gone to some of those and I've thought to myself, any lawyer could have won with those facts.
Yeah. And
not to minimize, obviously, their efforts, but sometimes facts are just so egregious and so one-sided or in favor of a big number that it's hard to see any, okay, that just makes sense.
And like we had one of the first conferences I remember going to was, I heard from, I think it was Jay Vaughn, and I remembered it. I thought it was a great case, a great workup by him.
They did an amazing job on that, yeah.
But one of the questions we had was like, okay, this is a $78 million verdict. Assuming that no one had that kind of policy, it just sounded like it was a local asphalt company. And then we actually met up with him after, do you recall? And he was like, oh, actually, this is like one of the biggest asphalt companies in 5 different, they have a pretty broad reach with 5 states and this was just a little project that they were doing because it didn't seem like a big road project. Anyways, needless to say, he was like, so yeah, this is actually one the check cleared.
Yeah, this is actually, we recovered all of it.
Yeah.
And because sometimes we'll go up afterward and say, so how much of that have you recovered? They've appealed or
we're going to go after that.
It got reduced and then you don't hear the full story about everything. So let's talk about, there's a couple that have happened recently in Utah. So if you're familiar with it, there was a birth injury defect, a birth case that resulted in a $950 million verdict in Utah recently. And of course, it made some immediate shockwaves, or at least there was a lot of, hey, did you hear about this case? Hey, did you hear about that case? Did you hear about this? You hear about this verdict? And there were some people there making it maybe, hey, hear about our great victory?
Yeah.
Turns out, do you know anything about the case actually?
Yeah, so it's related to a birth injury case, right? And the allegation was that the medical team had ignored fetal distress.
Okay.
So led to an abnormal fetal heart rate. Basically, the labor was mismanaged. They used a medication that was maybe misused. So quite a few allegations that caused a lot of issues because the baby had lacked oxygen during this labor procedure.
And the floor was understaffed. So it's just a lot of issues.
And so as part of this hospital group, and in Utah we have basically, I'll just no minimizing to the Revere Health and some of the Vista Health groups that are a little smaller, but IHC's the predominant hospital group in Utah. Yeah. They run primary children's. A lot of the biggest hospitals in every city is IHC. And there's been some others that are what we'll call startup specialty hospitals that have come and gone. This hospital in particular, as we understand the facts, went bankrupt in the middle of this lawsuit.
Yeah.
And probably was heading there before, but went through bankruptcy.
So let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
Malpractice cases in Utah.
Yeah.
You have a 2-year statute of limitations to bring an action for medical malpractice. Okay. When you think that, and that's from the time that you knew or should have known that the injury or negligent breach of the standard of care occurred, causing injury. Okay.
And 1 year if it's University of Utah Hospital.
Yeah. So if it's University of Utah, yeah, you only have 1 year because that's a government entity that owns obviously the hospital. So that's super important. And then also in Utah, we have what's called malpractice caps or damage caps. So we have a cap in Utah that says your general damages or your pain and suffering for malpractice cases cannot exceed $450,000.
Yep.
Okay. So when you hear $950 million, immediately you're thinking, what about the cap?
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, that sounds great, but if you're capped at $450,000, then how do you actually make money in malpractice cases, or how does the victim actually get compensated? And so that's super important to understand the differences, because in birth injury cases or birth defect cases, your arguments against the carrier or the doctor has to be that we don't have $450,000 of general damage. That should be easy. Pain and suffering. When I say general damages, I'm referring to pain and suffering. Yeah. That should be easy, right? Yeah. If there's a brain injury, right, to a child due to a birth injury and a breach of the standard of care by the doctor delivering that baby or hospital or staff, then that's going to be, hey, this child will have pain and suffering for the rest of life. That's going to be an easy, here's the $450,000. Yeah. What you have to prove, and this is where it gets difficult, is one, that there was actually malpractice, and then two, what does the future care over the life of this individual look like? Yeah. So for a baby, if the baby with the injuries that were suffered due to the malpractice will have a normal life expectancy, let's call it a male child. What's the life expectancy of a
probably mid 70s, 76 or 78.
So let's call it 78.
Yeah.
So then you're going to argue, okay, for 78 years, this baby's going to need care.
Yeah.
And depending on the type of care, let's just say it's nursing care.
Yeah.
Daily nursing care. Then your argument could be that for 78 years of this individual's life, they're going to need daily nursing care. That number's looking pretty big.
Yeah.
Probably.
But it's not $951 million big.
It could be. I don't know.
I mean, even a coma patient, I don't anticipate it being $2 million a year, $4 million a year.
And again, that's.
Yeah,
I don't know, the makeup of the number.
Yeah.
But what I understand is, and you were alluding to it, and this is why it's so important to be educated. And when you see numbers on websites, and we do numbers on our websites too.
Yeah.
Our numbers are legit, and those numbers are recovered.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, and we asked Javon, right?
Yeah.
Directly.
That was a question. We met him at lunch, and
did you
that was
really?
My first question.
Yeah. Did you really collect $70 million?
Yeah.
On behalf of these families from this asphalt company? And the answer was yes.
Yeah.
So that is where you're like, good for you and all the work you put into that for that family.
Plus, he's representing like good ginger lawyers.
He was ginger. Yeah, he is ginger. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is almost why I was like, I don't want to go talk to him.
Yeah. I mean, it's a short list of great $1 million Javon and then.
And the Jaren Sandberg.
Yeah, I mean.
There's only two I know.
There's only two.
Yeah.
Do you know any other ginger attorneys?
No, not good ones. So yeah, so ginger aside.
Thanks for including me on the good ones list, though.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Ginger aside, talking about this case, this birth injury case. Yeah, the immediate question is how much of that $950 million was collected, and that's what I understand, and I could be wrong. So I'm not I'm not casting shade, but I could be wrong. But what I understand is that, just like you said, that hospital or carrier provider went bankrupt, and so the case wasn't defended all the way through trial.
And this is one of those things that me and Tyler have to have conversations with clients a lot. Is they'll have some really harm done in a case, but the insurance is $30,000, and we have to have this conversation of, this is a college student you're going after. They have a minimum policy. They have no assets. And so, yeah, we could probably go to a court and spend $50,000 getting that piece of paper. Insurance company's actually on the hook to defend it. But then if the person can't pay and the insurance company's already offered the policy limits, then we can't go get what we call an excess judgment in that situation. And you're going to have this nice piece of paper that says they owe you infinity. It doesn't matter because it's not worth the paper it's printed on.
Right.
In fact, we wasted more money printing it out than we did on what you're actually going to recover. And so we deal with the world of recovery. And in this situation, that's the biggest worry, is that of the $951 million verdict, while it might look splashy on a website, our understanding is none of it was collectible.
That's what I understand. And again, I hope for the family that they have been able to do, and even for the lawyers.
Or even some of it was hopefully recovered through the bankruptcy. Sometimes with assets, you might be pennies on the dollar on this verdict, but even pennies on the dollar would be better than nothing.
Sure. But then if there's a bankruptcy involved, then the debt's going to be discharged anyways.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Okay. Case number 2.
But that's super important. And I want to pivot on case number 2 for a hot second.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
That's super important. It's super, super important because, look, that's something that's super. Everything that we're doing is trying to make sure that we're maximizing the recovery and or compensation for our client, right?
Yeah.
So when we're analyzing whether cases do go to trial or not, that's something that has to be a super sensitive conversation. Hey, if we could take this to trial, we could get a $950 million verdict, but if you don't collect anything, what does that do for you?
Yep.
So then it's okay. I don't want to be known for a big number on my website. I want to do well by my clients.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's what it was here. I don't know. I'm hoping I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt, but I hope that's what it was. Yeah. Everything that was done, we're doing it for the benefit of our clients because there is a chance of recovery. I hope so.
Yeah.
So, case number 2, okay? And this is actually super interesting as well. Case number 2, there's a recent verdict this year, 2025, for a misdiagnosis case, and the district was actually up in the 4th district, I understand, and it was out of Spanish Fork,
Utah County.
So something that's relevant to what we're talking about, because when we talk about Utah County or Washington County, Kane County,
basically every county but Salt Lake County.
Yeah, basically every county in Utah but Salt Lake County. They're known to be conservative venues. And so the insurance companies try to suggest, hey, you're not going to get that kind of a verdict award in that county because everyone's conservative.
Yeah.
So in this particular case, and again, we're talking based on people that kind of are in the know and things that we understand.
Yeah.
Okay. In that particular case, there was a misdiagnosis of a cancer, and the doctors basically told this individual that he was supposed to come back and get another check or test. He didn't understand it that way, and the representation was that was actually never conveyed, that he was supposed to come back and do another examination and test. So he didn't do it. Cancer was missed and ultimately passed away, leaving behind 5 young kids. And this individual apparently was pretty well off, had a good job, educated, and was in I want to say mid-30s, young 40s. Okay, so life expectancy pretty high, but young children are still dependent, and a wife. Okay, apparently there was a demand by the plaintiff lawyers from this carrier for $750,000. Okay. That was rejected by the insurance company. They filed suit. Okay. Post-filing suit, the defense lawyer said, pay this money. You should pay this money.
Yeah.
Okay. Take care of this family. we think we have some risk here.
Yeah.
The carrier said no. It's Utah County.
Yeah.
No, it's a conservative venue. We think we're going to prevail at trial. The verdict by a Utah County jury was approximately $16 million for this family.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And so it was an amazing effort by these lawyers. Now, I don't know, and we just talked a lot about collectability on story number 1. I don't know the status of the collections of the $16 million.
It's on appeals.
It's on appeal, right?
Yeah, still an appeal.
So that is another risk that oftentimes, even when we hear, because that made a lot of waves around Utah as well. Hey, $16 million verdict just came out of Utah County, which is great because a conservative jury actually did that.
Every plaintiff attorney, including us,
Was stoked.
we're talking to adjusters like the next day. Hey, did you hear about that? And they'd heard about it.
Absolutely, because they need to know that
One of the most conservative counties probably in Utah
and that juries are standing up for people that have been injured.
did it.
And when there's been a wrong, it needs to be corrected. And the only way that they can correct that is through money.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. Now, again, I don't know about the collection status of the $16 million, and I think it's under appeal. And that's something like I was about to say. You go get a big verdict, $950 million, $16 million, whatever it is, more oftentimes than not, the carrier or the defendant, which is really the insurance company, is going to appeal it.
Yeah.
And so many, many times at trial, we will have appellate lawyers that are watching the trial so that they can be ready for those appellate issues, because more than likely it's going to be appealed.
Yep.
Okay. That was actually a big deal that came out of Utah this year.
Yeah.
The $950 million, I look at it and I'm like, whatever. The $16 million,
we looked it up. To be fair, we looked up the case, and you could tell the defense withdrew from the case mid-case.
Right,
Never
right.
a sign that it's going. The verdict you're going to get is going to produce a.
If I had to guess, the judge was probably like, how much are you asking for?
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
The $16 million was impressive because they did defend it, and I understand that the defense lawyers that were on the case were actually they're good lawyers, did a good job, and they were actually recommending to the carrier to settle the case.
Yeah.
And then the verdict came back at just over $16 million. So I think that's super impressive.
No,
So
I do
that's
too.
story number 2.
Okay.
Okay, which I think was amazing for Utah. And the reason why I say that's amazing for Utah is because we are currently sitting in Washington County. And I can't tell you guys how many times I've had an insurance adjuster or a defense lawyer and even mediators
Yeah.
tell us, boy, you might want to really consider taking this because in Washington County, you're in Washington County.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Or Iron County. Or
Iron
Cedar City
County,
cases.
you're never going to get a number that big.
And so that's why I think this was great.
We're in a deposition tomorrow with a lawyer, and that lawyer I know has told me that very thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what? We're going to start trying more cases so that you can't say that. And now with that $16 million verdict, you can't say that because you just don't know.
You just don't know.
Story number 3. Sorry.
No, you're good. Okay, Utah truck crash where police found 2 children inside a refrigerated trailer. That's
insane.
That's insane. Early 2025, semi-truck on Utah highway lost a tire at high speed. Loose tire bounced into traffic, caused multi-vehicle crash with serious injuries. When police arrived, they investigated the semi-truck and discovered 2 young girls inside the refrigerated trailer.
Have we determined whether they were being like? Has it ever been determined whether they were trying to be trafficked or anything?
It's recent.
It's fairly recent.
Pretty recent.
The reason why this is a big deal is because obviously sex trafficking is a big issue, not just I think in Utah, but around the country and around the world. And there's been there's been some organizations, especially in Utah, that have been tried to shed light on that serious issue, and has had some weird issues as a result.
Yeah.
Tim Ballard and the Operation Underground.
Operation Underground. I almost call it the Underground Railroad.
Oh boy. But it's a real issue. And in fact, I just saw an article literally just I think yesterday about I got a Facebook post about how there was an attempted kidnapping of a child at the Smith's grocery store. like here in Washington County.
And we had an Amber Alert last week of an actual kidnapping that
Right.
was, and it
said a non-family
member disclosure at the top of the
Right.
Amber Alert. So it does happen.
So it's just, and that's mind blowing because in 2025, you're thinking to yourself, how could anybody like get away with kidnapping or sex trafficking? And it's happening all the time. And I want to make just a real quick highlight of a thing that happened in my family with Eden, my daughter.
Yeah.
She was working at Starbucks and got off. She was closing, so she got off around 10 o'clock at night. Went across the street, was filling up gas in her car, and a truck was had pulled in front of the main entrance to the gas station, and then a woman came over and asked. It was like a moving truck, like a U-Haul.
Yeah.
And asked her if she could help put some things in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
Which
gives me Ted Bundy vibes. I'm sorry.
And my daughter, to her credit, immediately was like, no, stranger danger almost. Had that like intuition of, you seem super sketchy. This is super sus. Absolutely not. I will not help you. Yeah. And the woman was, wait, what? You're not going to help me? And she's like, no.
It was like being weird about it.
Kind of being weird about it. So then she walked away, and then my daughter immediately put the gas pump away, hung it up, and I'm out of here.
You trained her good.
And then when she was driving away, she could see the woman talking to what appeared to be a man, and just super weird. And I don't know if there was nefarious like intent behind it. It seemed super sketchy, but thank goodness my daughter had that inclination to do that. So it's happening.
So then you see those two people in the refrigerated space in a truck is terrible.
It was their brother driving.
So just brother driving.
They were going to visit their sister.
So they just happened to be in the back of a refrigerated truck.
Yeah, they weren't transported against their will.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, that's helpful. So the two girls were just in the back of a truck.
And then we have the officers reported that the temperature inside the trailer was unsafe for human travel, so it's clearly refrigerated enough that it's unsafe.
So that's something that's super important because one, they are not there, but against their will. That was almost like in the back of a pickup truck. And how often do you see? So that was crazy because there was an accident and they were injured. And then how often do you see pickup trucks with kids in the back of the truck driving around town?
I don't see it. I feel like when we grew up, it felt like it was a lot more normal.
Not as much anymore.
But I feel like I don't see it as often. Do you feel like you see it as often?
No, not as often. But when I
was a teenager, it was like, let's go.
All the time.
No seatbelt.
But when I see it, I freak out.
Yeah.
And what I see now, actually, which I find crazy, I do see it on occasion. Animals in the back of pickup trucks.
And every once in a while, you see them like on the back,
Dude,
standing on the box.
I just saw one last week, and a dog not tied down in the back of a flatbed trailer.
Yeah,
on the freeway.
I've seen that a couple times. Yep, on the freeway. Yep.
With an extended cab.
Now, I'm hoping that the dog owner knows their dog. But you'd hate for something to happen to the dog too.
That's what I was concerned about. I'm like, what? Yeah. Any slight move, and that dog goes flying.
Yeah. Or you as the person following him is going to hit him.
Yeah, that's
in a truck though. Frozen truck is insane.
It's insane. So, is that driver liable? Is the individual that hit him liable? Yes. Yeah. And that would be an interesting argument for the insurance company on apportionment for the negligence of the driver of the refrigerated truck having the girls back there.
Yeah, because if you're the person that hits into the semi truck, and I can't remember if the semi truck was at fault or not, but if it's the other vehicle that was at fault, then you're like, wait a second, they almost harmed themselves to some degree if they're in the back of this truck.
Now, if they're minors and they're like, brothers, get back there, I don't have room for you.
Because we have this discussion with seatbelt. If you're not wearing a seatbelt in an accident, you have a good reason. We have an accident case right now where the client had just unbuckled. There was a spilling coffee on the floor, and they just unbuckled. But in most situations, I think it does contribute to your injury being on seatbelt. And we know that a leading cause of death is in Utah. A lot of our fatalities not wearing seatbelts. So in this situation, they're clearly not wearing a seatbelt in the refrigerated portion of the truck. I think you'd have a good argument for apportionment.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then of course, when a semi truck or a commercial vehicle is involved, obviously they typically or should have CDLs, which commercial driver's licenses, and they're bound by other particular rules. And so their driving has to be in such a way that they're not obviously rear-ending or causing accidents with other vehicles, whether it's refrigerated or not. There happen to be girls in the back of it. So there's going to be some liability on behalf of that semi truck for sure. And then I'm curious whether, how it shakes out with the brother who was driving the refrigerated truck. But that was a kind of a crazy story. When I heard that, I immediately thought trafficking. Thank goodness it wasn't.
That's your worry.
But just maybe that's another pointer. Just don't put your kids in the back of a refrigerated truck and drive them around.
Yeah.
I would probably.
I'd recommend against it.
I'd advise against it. Yeah. Smart.
Okay, this one's interesting. So before we get into this one, I've never verified this, but my mom and my grandma growing up have told me that I had a great grandfather here in Utah that worked at a mine, a lot of mine workers in my family, and that was sick the day of a giant mine explosion, which now we get into some of these historic cases. These are just some of the historic cases from Utah.
Oh, interesting.
The first one here is the Castlegate mine disaster, 1924. 171 miners died in a coal dust explosion.
Wow. I didn't know about it. Where'd that happen?
I think it's up. Look up the exact location, but I recall, and again, it could not be this exact mining disaster. I know there's been other mining disasters in Utah, but
As you're looking that up, that's a big deal for companies to make sure they're providing safe environments for workplace safety. That can't happen. 174 people.
90 miles southeast of Salt Lake City, yeah.
Wow. I feel like Utah doesn't get enough credit for some of the history that we have here, shaping like the Western United States.
Yeah.
Think about it. The Union Pacific Railroad, right? Wait. Is that what it was called post? We know that Salt Lake City was the...
They met at Promontory Point, a little bit north of Salt Lake City.
It's the joining of... What two railroads?
Union Pacific and...
Central
Pacific Railroad?
No, it wouldn't be Central Pacific.
Eastern Pacific, what?
No, it wouldn't be Eastern Pacific. You're like maybe Eastern Atlantic?
Eastern Atlantic? I don't know. I've been there. They have the golden spike in the little museum thing.
No, I'm just saying it would be the Eastern Pacific.
I know.
That's what I was thinking too, though, to be fair to you.
I'm like, Western Pacific?
What two railroads?
Northern? It was Central.
It was Central Pacific. What the? See?
Look at you.
It wasn't the Eastern Pacific.
Pulling out like middle school history.
It was Central Pacific.
I guess you wouldn't have studied that. I would study that like back in Utah history back in the day.
Union Pacific and Central Pacific, those two railroads
met,
and they met in Salt Lake City, and that was a major defining point for the Western United States, and particularly for Utah, because that kind of connected the West Coast and where did the Central Pacific originate? I want to say like New York or something.
They had railroad lines all across kind of the east.
Maybe that's what it was.
And so I want to say it's like they finally ran it the last 2,000 miles or whatever.
It originated, so that's the East Coast, but that was a defining point in I believe in my opinion, where? So the Central Pacific.
That's where
and then the Union Pacific came from where? But I thought that was like.
Anyways.
And then it connected with, I thought, one of the East Coast.
Well, all the East
rail
ones were already
lines.
Connected.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what they were connecting the two, and then
all the East Coast and even Central East were already connected.
I think you're right.
And then you obviously wanted to connect it all the way to the West Coast.
Okay, that might be it. Okay, but big deal to have it connect in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And then, of course, a number of Mormon workers that were involved in doing that, and involved in.
And then we could do trade,
and the mining, and
you
the
can't
trade,
even have Sears. Sears gets big after that.
So I think a big part. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the mining, the railroads.
Union Pacific was in Omaha, Nebraska.
See, Nebraska. That's
Midwest.
wild.
But it didn't just start there and go to there. Nebraska, my assumption was already connected.
Was connected, and then they connected with Central Pacific, and then that's kind of like it really brought the country all in one system.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine disaster. So, tell me about your grandpa.
So that was the story I've always been told is like a great grandpa that was supposed to work at the mine that day, doesn't go in, and there's a mine explosion, kills a bunch of his like work buddies and
Did
everyone.
that really happen? That sounds like one of my mom's stories.
No, that's what I'm saying. I've heard that, but I've never heard anything verified. So that's why I'm like, as we're reading this first case, I'm like, okay,
I'm sure it did.
I want
I'm
to
sure
like
it
look
did
up.
happen. I'm sure it did happen. I'm sure it did.
And you wonder if it was like he got fired 6 months before, and it was one of those stories that got better over time. That like he was driving to the mine.
He was on his way and threw up.
He was going down the mine shaft, and it blew him out of the mine shaft. Because everyone else did one of those. But this is all pre-unions.
Dude, I can envision great grandpa Sandberg he's probably a ginger.
Yeah.
Being blown out of a mine shaft.
Of course,
With his
it's
hair on
ginger.
fire.
Yeah. That story gets better every time. And just made it out alive.
It just barely made it out.
Yeah.
It's the only reason why you're sitting here.
And back then, they'd have been like, a big verdict would have been like $80.
Yeah. In 1924,
Bought a house with it.
$150 were awarded to the 170 families.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That's too bad.
Okay.
But it
and
did-
on the train, the reason you brought up trains and
But
probably
it did reshape workplace safety and OSHA and OSHA.
And the lamp went out, so they were actually inspecting if there was a gas leak. The lamp went out, and they lit the lamp, and it exploded the mine, which is terrible. That's how it started.
What it highlights is small little things can lead to like major disaster.
Yeah.
And so if you're not watching what you're doing or not being safe or just little things, that's the thing I think people don't realize, like little things can lead to like major disasters. And if you're not like, even in the criminal realm with like domestic violence, we know that domestic violence is a big deal. Little things can lead to like escalate so quickly, and all of a sudden you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's just
And there's a book out there I read one time in college that was like you're 3 bad decisions away from being homeless. It was like because one little bad decision leads to another little bad decision, and eventually you're homeless. And I think these kind of things happen.
or lead to loss of life, loss of limb.
171 people died.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the worst mining disasters in Utah for sure.
And then in 1944, near the Great Salt Lake, there were 2 trains. Talk about trains.
That's why I thought you were bringing it up.
Sorry,
was
yeah.
the train.
Collided head on, and more than 48 people were killed and over 80 injured. And then investigations revealed the procedural failures and miscommunication between railroad crews is what led to the crash.
It reminds you of that great Denzel Washington movie where it's the runaway train.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and they're like miscommunicating someone, but you think of how heavy a train is. 2 trains, they've miscommunicated that they're both on the line coming at each other, and they collide.
Something not super similar, but very similar with catastrophic results and injuries and death just happened in Ohio. Not long ago. Was that last year? The derailment of the train in Ohio? That's 2024, 2023, I think maybe when it happened. How does that happen today? You can understand how it happens in 1944?
Yeah.
Because obviously communication.
Cell phone,
Yeah,
and electronic
cell phone, electronics,
computers
and
that should be
technology or
monitoring all this
whatever.
stuff. Yeah.
But how that happened in 2023, 24, and I think that case is still ongoing with all the different payouts and issues and whatnot. The Lariat.
But by 1944, they'd have given them like $100 and $200 probably by then.
If 1924 is $150, they probably got.
$200. Because this 1944 is still World War II.
That's true.
We're doing
$300.
war bonds.
We doubled it. $300. That's horrible.
That's a bad one. Can you imagine? So then in 1956, these are all about 12 years later, it looks like.
Yeah.
Lariat Cafe explosion.
Do you think
Now this is an interesting case, Tyler, because we have a similar case.
Do you think the Ford Lariat was named after this case?
No. Wait, is Lariat isn't that like a? Isn't there something with like a
lasso?
A lasso? Isn't there something with a Lariat? Isn't that where
There could be.
where the word Lariat comes
I'm
from?
pretty sure it came after. I'm pretty sure the truck's named after the Lariat Cafe explosion.
Yeah.
Duh.
Okay, but this one happened from a conversion from a butane to natural gas.
Yeah, we do. We actually have a case right now. It's very similar to this.
Yeah, and so a leak filled the cafe with gas, and an explosion killed 16 people, injured about 30 more. Obviously, in Utah, it helped change how we regulated gasoline installations and energy inspections.
But and this is super interesting because that is super, super important. And it's what's crazy about the case that we have. Luckily, unfortunately, it did not include anybody dying, but it did result in catastrophic injury. what I find crazy about our particular case is that all of the gas lines, the tank, and the exploding machine were all removed by the homeowner and the insurance company shortly after.
Before it could be inspected.
Before it could be properly inspected. Now, is that telling?
The Lariat one, they didn't even know. It blew up big enough. There was nothing to inspect.
Nothing to inspect.
Yeah, nothing to inspect on that one.
The Ford truck one?
Ford Lariat.
The Ford Lariat.
Well, it's just interesting how sometimes we talk about this in the law a little bit, where sometimes like terrible cases create terrible laws. And like one of the recent ones we're dealing with a lot on cases that's changed how Utah cases. There was this the Norman case, and we'll probably dedicate a different podcast to that.
Yeah,
because it changes. But the case is actually like an inconsequential. The defense, this is really defense motivated case in Utah. They picked a case that was over $6,000, took it all the way to the Utah Supreme Court. So you knew it had nothing to do with the actual facts of the case. And out of it comes this terrible ruling. And there was something like 30 interest groups that filed on this case with the defense. This was clearly a strategic move by defense. State Farm, a lot of really big insurance companies went onto this case to really dictate terrible laws. In these cases, I felt like they probably woke a lot of regulators and legislators up to making changes. We hope that it does the same on a terrible case like this new one.
The idea, and we've talked about several stories, the idea behind obviously pursuing lawsuits and cases, and when you highlight certain cases or issues, the idea is that, and you've used the word public policy numerous times, the idea is to enforce change.
Yeah.
And to make sure that things become more safe, people drive more safe. There's regulations regarding gas lines. There's regulations regarding trains. That's a big deal. Yeah. And plaintiff lawyers, that's ultimately, hopefully, what we're trying to obviously get our clients compensated, but we're also trying to realize change.
Yeah.
And safety. And so it's frustrating when and with this, again, it's another podcast. It's frustrating when you have all these lobbyist groups and interest groups that are paying tons of money to get a case that's going to change case law, which ultimately, and the whole idea behind it, and this is, we're already seeing it, is to minimize case values.
Yeah.
That's when we get down to the nuts and bolts of it, it's to minimize what the insurance companies have to pay.
And that's like when we talked about the first of the podcast about that $450,000 cap with medical malpractice cases. It's a terrible rule. And we're dealing with the same thing on this new case. Sometimes it goes against what I think it takes it out of, if a jury were to award a number, it almost is trying to say, jury, you as the people, you don't know better. We're gonna take this out of your hands.
Let's highlight this for a quick second. If a doctor were to commit malpractice and cut off your leg, okay, totally breach the standard of care, you are, for your pain and suffering, capped at $450,000 for losing your leg.
That's insane.
That's insane.
And we highlight this in other jurisdictions. They'll get a $28 million verdict. $4 million will be related to future care. And then the jury awards a big number, $20 million, $24 million in pain and suffering for what this person's going to have to deal with their whole life. And then I look at that same thing. I go, this would be a $4 million and $450,000 verdict in Utah because they destroy our pain and suffering.
Even if you get that verdict, because the jury doesn't know.
Yeah, they don't know.
Even if you get that verdict, then it gets capped at the $450,000. So the insurance company is like, "Good for you, great. You got a big verdict against us.
Yeah,
here's $450,000."
Just
and
terrible.
that's when we say, okay, lobbyist groups and interest groups and all these things, those types of damages, these types of caps for malpractice or other things that limit recovery from people that suffer real loss. That's the problem.
And the best part about it is the lobbyists, I know with the medical malpractice one, they really sold Utah legislators on this cap's going to make it cheaper for our doctors and it's going to reduce healthcare costs because doctors won't be paying these big fees. It'll make everything cheaper. We pay the same rates, doctors pay the same malpractice rates as any other state that doesn't have caps. There's no savings to Utahns. Who gets hurt is all of the victims.
I mean, that when you hear that narrative,
well, and the insurance companies,
they're full.
The insurance companies really come out ahead.
The insurance companies make it come out ahead. That's really what it is. It's protecting their bottom line.
Yeah.
That unfortunately is the reality. We have a number of cases we want to talk to, but we're running out of time. So we'll do another podcast on some other cases because there's a ton of interesting cases in Utah to highlight and talk about and how it shapes like where we are today in 2025. But some of these cases, some of these things that are happening, this new case that came down from the Utah Supreme Court, the railroad, right?
Yeah.
It's so interesting to look back retrospectively and say, this is shaping what we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
This is what we're dealing with in regards to why it's so important to hire an injury lawyer, because if you're not familiar with how it works or why it works the way it does, then you run the risk of not getting fair and true value for your claims. Yeah. And you're entitled to it. That's what's crazy. That's what I hate about the cap. That's what I hate about this new ruling. These people are entitled to it. And you're going to make a decision based on like lobbyist groups.
And you're trying to talk to like clients who I feel like are a good, again, they're injured, and so they're in the thick of it maybe more than an average juror, but they're like normal people that they're the type of people you expect on the jury. They're not lawyers. And you're trying to explain to them some of these like new rulings and new things that are hurting their case, and they're just outraged. Wait, how is this passing in Utah? I'm like, in this one, in this case we're talking about before, it's the Supreme Court. The justices all came down with the lobby groups that had lobbied for it. It's not what, it wasn't like we voted on it. It wasn't like this came up in a special election. Everyone figured out, oh, by the way, we're going to cap damages. Everyone vote on this. No, no one ever probably even heard about it. If you're not in the personal injury space, you don't even know about it.
Right. It's unfortunate. So we'll see how it plays out. Anyways, if you guys ever feel like you may have a case, think you want to know whether you have a case, reach out to us. The consults are always free. You can find us, wewininjurylaw.com. You can call us. You can find us on Instagram, social media, other social media mediums like TikTok, Facebook,
Instagram,
YouTube. What else?
That's all?
I'd say Snapchat, but that's not true. We're not on Snapchat.
We're too old.
We're too old. Anyways, feel free to always reach out. The consults are always free, and you don't pay until we win. So remember that. So hopefully everybody is mindful of those around you. Be kind and courteous. And with that, good afternoon.